Well then, 6 games down and only 2 more left to go. Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, it is I am, the one and only Mega Man here, and I am from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos here once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of the forms of the Mega Man Marathon 2. So, remember how last time, that despite the fact that we once again managed to able to take a break for a little bit this time, mainly due to the fact that we have been busy lately, and especially noticeable with the amount of edits we keep on rambling all about. So because of that though, everything else will be a lot more chilled every now and then. So because of that though, yeah, we do apologize with the forms of another delayed break, but hopefully by this point in time, no delays or anything else this time around. So yeah, last time that when it comes to the forms of Mega Man Marathon 2 so far, is the fact that recently Tiana just managed able to recently finish up with the forms of, well, let's just say Mega Man and Bass Challenger from the future, aka, well, Rockman and Forte 2, for the sake of the forms of the sequel for the time being, because I have no idea what the Japanese names was. So with that being said though, is the fact that, well, today we are going to be doing, well, should I say, Ray the Flying Squirrel. He's going to be doing the forms of, well, let's just say a single Let's Play for the sake of the forms of this entire marathon, and this what appears to be one of those Mega Man games on the Sega consoles. Mind you, there's only 2 of them, one on the handheld and one on the console. So because of this though, originally though, that yeah, Jewel was supposed to be able to go on to Mega Man the Wily Wars, but she'll save that up until tomorrow. So for the time being, it looks like Ray the Flying Squirrel is going to be tackling through Mega Man for the Game Gear. No subtitles or anything, it's just Mega Man, but on the Game Gear. So yeah, but without further ado, let's go to Mega Man for the Game Gear. Sega, along with US Gold Presents, alongside with Capcom USA, and finally Freestyle Software Limited. 4 companies that made this. AD 2000X. A victorious army of robots built by Dr. Wily has taken over the world, having a strong sense of justice. Rock volunteered to be converted into a fighting robot. Kind of thinking about it, certain scenes like this is very similar to Mega Man 4 for the NES. Thus, the super robot Mega Man was born. And that's literally about it what the entire plot represents. Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, it is I am, the one and only Ray the Flying Squirrel here. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next game in terms of the forms of Mega Man Marathon 2. So yeah, here we are on to the forms of the only Sega Game Gear installment when it comes to the Mega Man game. Because, well, this is it. This is the only Mega Man game on the Sega handheld device. So this is called Mega Man for the Sega Game Gear. So I think this appears to be like a combination of the forms of, let's just say, well, let's just say the gameplay element from Mega Man 5, but with the forms of some significant changes here. Like, I'll get to more details about that in a second, because as you can tell, the version I'm going to be playing on, I'm going to be playing on the emulator, much like in any other Game Boy games, including the forms of the Bandai WonderSwan installment. So, anyway, so I'm playing the game on hard difficulty. Yeah, there are 2 difficulties you can select, either normal or hard mode, but I'm going for hard mode just to be up for the challenge. So as you can see, we actually have ourselves 4 Robot Masters, very similar to the forms of how it does it on the Game Boy Mega Man games, except this time we actually have a weird combination. Well, to be more specifically, the majority of the robots from Mega Man 5, and one of them at the moment based off of Mega Man 4 for some reason. So in this case though, let's just go ahead and select Bright Man to start up with. So yeah, it seems a bit odd, especially noticeable because, well, it seems pretty obvious this is on a handheld after all. So yeah, let's get to it with the forms of Mega Man for the Sega Game Gear. So again, if you ever played any other Mega Man games before, you know exactly how this plays out, except the noticeable differences this time is the fact that, unlike in the Game Boy Mega Man games, that basically though is the fact that with the Game Boy Mega Man games, most of the level designs are a lot different than the forms of how it does it on a console version. Whilst in this particular rendition of this Mega Man game on the Game Gear, the actual level design, even on the forms of Bright Man stage, it feels a lot like the forms of the console counterparts, except there's a massive differences this time, and that is the fact that, yeah, unfortunately though, we have to deal with screen crunch. So because of this though, meaning that you can't see what's up ahead of you, especially noticeable you can't really see on screen, and especially noticeable about the fact that you obviously have to deal with the forms of some unpredictable moments like cheap enemy placements and stuff like that. So this meaning about the fact that this is without a doubt one of the hardest Mega Man games I've ever gonna have to play through for you guys, especially noticeable if it's better than the forms of how it does it on Mega Man 3 for the Game Boy. That because of the forms of the level design and everything. Whilst in here though, well, it plays out exactly like the forms of the Mega Man games on the console department, except the fact that, well, relatively speaking, that the gameplay style is remarkably similar to the forms of how it does it in Mega Man 5 for the NES most likely. So because as far as I'm aware, that this game did only came out in North America, which I was a bit shocked about this because the US Gold was actually by the forms of how it factor with the European company, but it turns out it was actually going to be exclusive to American audiences, so a bit weird for that releases, don't you think? Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, relatively speaking about the fact that, well, this game came out in 1995, the same year as in Mega Man 7 was first released on the Super Nintendo, so relatively speaking that, most people seem to buy the Super Nintendo for the sake of Mega Man 7 as it goes by. So, yeah, it seems kind of strange, doesn't it? And I think this came out after the release of Mega Man The Wily Wars, I'm pretty sure, and I think that will actually be, this game right here is the last essences about the forms of the last game to be released on the Sega console. Well, technically it might not be, because there was also the forms of Mega Man 8 for the Sega Saturn for the likes of the American and the Japanese owners. And same applies to the forms of that other game that was also on the Sega Saturn as well, by the forms of, well, let's just say Mega Man X3 and Mega Man X4. So, yeah, that might be something worth mentioning for the sake of time, so but I digress. So, yeah, obviously you're still able to retain yourself the forms of the sliding maneuvering, as well as the forms of the Mega Buster, including the charged up Mega Buster, although I'm pretty sure it'll do exactly the same thing as the likes of how it does it in Mega Man 5, that basically every time you get hit, then basically you lose your charge shot, like that for example. So, yeah, it's kind of similar to the forms of how it does it on the forms of in Mega Man 5, basically, for the console version anyway, so yeah, that might be somewhat inconsistent sometimes. And also, something's worth mentioning for this point as well is the fact that, well, from the start though, is the fact that you do get Rush Coil from the start, which I think the Rush Coil in this game is actually act out very similar to the forms of how it does it in Mega Man 5. So, at the very least, that's that. And there's also short things to worth noting for, there's no Rush Jet in this game at all. So because of that though, because of the limitations of the Game Gear, and also from Bright Man, he just jumps all over the place, and this boss right here is actually, to me, one of the hardest bosses in the game, because sometimes I can't really predict of what the actual jump pattern is supposed to be, so as a result though, it makes things a hell of a lot harder to able to deal with Bright Man in this version, unlike the console version, along with the forms of the you know, Game Boy version of Mega Man 4. So, yeah, best assured that we need to use Charge Up Mega Buster and just try to keep on sliding, so just in case you will be pretty much safe for the most part. So, there we go. We basically deal with the forms of Bright Man right here. Jeez, he's actually a lot harder than it looks. Especially noticeable you have to deal with the screen crunch after all as well. So in this case, we get the Bright Weapon. Is that supposed to be like a flash stopper for somehow? Nah, I have no words to think about it. So anyways, now we deal with that, so let's go and move on to the next Robot Master, which is actually based off from Mega Man 5 for the NES, which is Napalm Man. So, yeah, apparently that's we're now going to be faced off against with the majority of those Robot Masters based off from Mega Man 5 now. So because of that though, because like I said, the entire structure of the game itself, it feels like a mini version of the forms of the classic Mega Man games. Well, to be more specifically, it's a combination of Mega Man 4 and Mega Man 5 for the NES. Because the reason why I say this is because out of all the actual Mega Man games we're going to be playing through for this entire marathon, this is by far the shortest game of the bunch, next to the forms of how it does it in Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge for the Game Boy. So, despite the fact that in Dr. Wily's Revenge for the Game Boy, it does manage to offer us a different level layout for the sake of the different level design. So, at the very least in this particular installment though, the level design in this particular game is very identical to the console version, except the fact that we have to do a screen crunch and stuff like that, which just always feels a bit, well, disjointed. So yeah, you get the idea about that. And also, just like in any other Mega Man games, there are energy tanks to be found. However though, that you do need to find them, just like in the forms of how it does it in any other NES games in terms of Mega Man games for sure. So yeah, there's no shop or anything else to be more specific, it's just the fact that you have to find them for the sake of well-hidden locations. So yeah, that might be something more, you know, worth mentioning for the sake of the forms of how the fact that there's a massive key differences between the console version of Mega Man 4 and 5 throughout. So, and of course extra lives is still a thing of course, so yeah, that might actually be nothing predictably that special about it. Apart from the fact that there's one massive key differences. It's the fact that unlike in any other Mega Man games, you know, every single Mega Man games up to this point, that you do have a continues or unlimited amount of continues. So if you, every time you get a game over, you eventually get out able to retry that level again. So yeah, I'll take the invincibility frames any day, so that way I can get my another extra life. So that'll be, I don't know, kind of reckless to do this, but at the same time though, kind of worth it in my eyes. So, well, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, obviously you still need to watch out for those spikes after all, because spikes will once again kill you in one hit, so keep that in mind. And also I do apologize with the forms of that particular gameplay footage, feels a bit janky at first. That's mainly because, like I said, I'm playing this on an emulator, because that was the only time I'm going to be playing this game on an emulator. Because let me tell you, this game, along with the forms of Dr. Wily's Revenge for the Game Boy, this is by far the hardest games I've ever played in terms of the Mega Man games up to this point for this marathon. But wish me luck, I suppose, because there might be a few times that you come across into cheap devs, most notably with cheap enemy placements, as well as the forms of screen crunch, and on top of all that stuff though is the fact that it can be very unpredictable at times, so. But luckily though, like I said, this game is going to be super short, very much like the forms of how it does it on Dr. Wily's Revenge. In fact, even way more shorter than the forms of how it does it on Dr. Wily's Revenge, that's for sure. So relatively speaking, the amount of levels they've got in this game is actually, fundamentally speaking, they're about, I want to classify for saying, 8 shorter levels. So yeah, nothing else to say about this, I'm assuming so anyway, so. Anyways, let's go and take down Napalm Man. In fact, I'm gonna have to commit suicide trying to deal with him, because obviously I can't deal with him with a short amount of health, so. But regardless of everything else though, is the fact that since originally, from the likes of the forms of Mega Man 5 for the NES, even though despite the fact that I haven't played Mega Man 5 for the NES for such a long time, so I can't remember what his weakness is all about when it comes to Napalm Man. Oh wait, it was actually by the forms of the Crystal Man weapon, I'm guessing so anyway. So relatively speaking, that his weakness this time in this installment is actually by the forms of the Flash Stopper for some reason. So I've no idea why they bring up with that change though, but then again though, that's mainly because of the forms of the limitations of the handheld, which that'll be also applies on the forms of how it does it on other 2 Robot Masters, where we'll save that up until at the very end. So in this case, we got ourselves the bomb weapon for odd reason, for the sake of the forms of not giving us the actual proper name for the actual weapon, so. Anyways, let's move on to Stone Man. So, and after that though, we'll pretty much gonna have to take on Starman next. In fact, we haven't come across into Starman for such a long while since during the course of the marathon, because after all, ever since then, you know how the fact that Silver the Hedgehog, he never actually come across into Starman from the likes of the forms of Mega Man 4 for the Game Boy. So I think that will be the only time we're gonna have to able to actually have a rematch encounter with Starman only in this game in particular. So yeah, that might be something worth classifying for mentioning about this. Oh, speaking of such, thank you for able to give me an extra life back. So anyway, so yeah, as I was saying, when it comes to the forms of the continue system in this particular franchises of the Mega Man games, normally you do have unlimited amount of continues every time you get a game over and stuff like that. In this game though, there are no continues, so every time you get a game over, you kicked out and you go all the way back to the beginning of the game into the title screen. So yeah, just like in any other Game Gear games, that's for sure, including the forms of the rest of the Sonic the Hedgehog Game Gear titles. So Naughty White, they managed able to get rid of the continues in this installment, although unlike the Wily Wars for the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive for those of you who lived in Europe, that game does have continues. So I honestly have no idea why they managed to took out the actual continue system in this particular game. So maybe because it was a bit archaic for most players. So I honestly have no words to think about it. So, and also kind of thing about it though is the fact that it's kind of weird able to actually listen to that particular you know, charged up Mega Buster sound effects, because it almost goes like do as opposed to like predict, unlike the forms of how it does it on the NES or Game Boy installments of Mega Man. So yeah, it seems kind of strange, doesn't it? So anyways, let's go ahead and oh jeez Louise, those guys right there just almost just managed able to corner me sometimes, but thankfully we can still able to pick up some of the usual items from the forms of how it does in any other Mega Man games, that's for sure. Such as, for instance, with the forms of you know, health pickups, as well as the forms of one-ups, like I mentioned this earlier, and also the weapon refill energy, and that's pretty much about it, basically. So I don't think there's any new additions on this though. It's just the fact that it's just like a watered-down version of the console versions of, you know, Mega Man 4 and 5. So because, like I said, there's no rush jet to be found. So this means we have to deal with the forms of a lot of tougher obstacles now. So, or technically speaking, there's also one of those levels in particular, which we'll see that in just a moment, until after we're done with the forms of the last few stages, of course. So, and I think if I recall correctly, that's very much like the forms of how it does it on let's just say Mega Man 1, and especially noticeable with Mega Man and Bass, Challenger from the future. I think there was only a grand total of 6 Robot Masters to be able to actually decide to fight. So, yeah, that's mainly because of the forms of the limitations of the Game Gear. And also, short things to worth noting for is the fact that out of all the actual Mega Man games, when it comes to likely for physical games department, this game is by far the most expensive out of all the other Mega Man games up to this point. I have no idea why. I'm pretty sure it's because of the forms of the sale records or something like that, or maybe it's probably because it was on the Game Gear, or is it just because of the forms of how the fact that they managed able to remove quite a lot of features than the forms of how it does on the console versions of Mega Man, ranging from, you know, like I said, Mega Man 4 and Mega Man 5, so... But I digress. And thankfully, you can able to actually pick up the insane amounts of those energy tanks this time, unlike the forms of how it does it on the Game Boy games. So, at the very least, that's that. And I think I get the strong sense of feeling... Wait, is that supposed to be where Eddie was supposed to be located? Or wait a second, they managed to took out some familiar characters from the sake of the forms that based off of Mega Man 4 and 5 sometimes. Like, I do definitely know for the fact that there won't be any visible appearances of the forms of not only Eddie for the sake of the forms of trying to help you out throughout the game for its useful items, but also they took out the forms of I would say Roll, and especially Dr. Light, and on top of all that stuff though, no Proto Man to be found. So I honestly have no idea why they managed to able to have barely amount of story. Although, obviously, the amount of cutscenes they got from the opening cinematic cutscene of the game, you know, like I said, they heavily borrowed the exact same scenes as a little bit from the likes of the forms of Mega Man 4's opening cinematic cutscene from the NES game. So, no idea why they managed to bring that decision to make. So anyways, here we go with Napalm Man, and his weakness is pretty much exactly the same as the forms of how it does it in Mega Man 5, and also say applies to Mega Man 4 for the Game Boy. So yeah, nothing different from there, except the fact that I will have to admit it though right away. That's, like I mentioned before already, is the fact that I have no idea why that Brightman is actually a bit tougher in this game. So I'm guessing that the majority of the Robot Masters in this game this time around though, for me though, actually is by far the hardest aspect of it. So anyway, so now let's go in and take care of the forms of the next Robot Master, which appears to be Starman. So, in this time, we have to deal with the forms of the entire stage with Screen Crunch. So this means, oh boy, there's going to be a lot of frustration here and there. Especially noticeable, you can't really see what's below you. Especially noticeable, if there are some instant death spikes showed up, then basically though, is the fact that you have to do have a lot of emphasis on, not only for a massive guesswork, but also with the forms of, well, just the leaps of faith. So, in fact, this game does remind me of the forms of Mega Man and Bass for the GBA, or Game Boy Advance, whatever you to be more specific, because that game also has Screen Crunch, but except the fact that what makes that game a lot harder than the forms of how it does it on the Super Nintendo, or should I say, oh, did I somehow grab the one-up? I have no idea. And also you realize is the fact that unlike Mega Man 5 for the console version, there isn't any letter collectibles to be found. So that's something well classified for mentioning that. And I somehow did not jump because I get the feeling that my X button just refuses to jump because I'm using the my DualShock 4 controller at the moment to able to play the emulation games just like always it will be. Because when I was trying to able to practice this game on my own time, when I was trying to play the game with the keyboard, holy crap, it's a lot awkward with the actual keyboard controls because thanks to the forms of not only for the sake of the forms of this uncomfortable key placement, but also get this is the fact that if I was trying to deal with the Robot Masters with the keyboard, it'll be a hellish thing to do because most of the time the Robot Masters moves a lot faster than you ever think. So as a result though, yeah, I can totally see why this is without doubt the hardest games of all the entire games we're able to actually decide to play through for the sake of the entire marathon. So yeah, I honestly have no words to say about the forms of this game's existence. So anyway, so let's go in and continue things on here. So just in case I don't want to able to... Oh god! Got surrounded by those asteroid versions of these guys. But at least I'm hoping that we might able to get ourselves a health pickup in here somewhere. But so far we haven't got any health pickups at the moment on the safe spot, so... And also what's cool about this stage though is that much like in Mega Man 5 on the console version is the fact that we have to do with this stage as in the low gravity. So that's that. Unlike the forms of how it does it on Ring Man stage from the likes of the forms of in Mega Man 4, but not only on the forms of the NES but also on the Game Boy version as well, that you don't have low gravity with us, so... Anyway, so now we've made our way towards at the very end of this level by taking on Starman, and of course just like a Napalm Man stage, or the Napalm Boss Man, or I don't know what you would call it, because it has been a, I don't know, I'm not gonna lie, a couple of days since I actually done a lot of commentary, because, well, relatively speaking, I've just felt a bit, I don't know, kind of sweaty all of a sudden, but regardless of such though, we'll just have to able to stick around with it, so... Yeah, because normally, when it comes to Starman, I think it was, you know, his weakness from the likes of the forms of the original version of Mega Man 5, I think it was supposed to be, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing it's like Wave Man's weapon, whilst in here though this time it's just the stone weapon, which I will say it is practically worthless, although apart from the fact that I did use it for one time, and that is trying to deal with Starman himself. And that was basically about it, so... And now we got ourselves... What? Crash weapon? That doesn't make sense. It was supposed to be by the forms of a star crash, like a shield weapon or something? I have no idea. Isn't that supposed to be like Dr. Cossack's castle? This game is weird sometimes. And speaking of weirdness, here we have another Robot Master to take care of. In this case, as far as I like to point things out, this is the last Mega Man 5 Robot Master we're going to be taking on, and that is Wave Man himself. So, Yeah, it's so weird, able to actually play certain robot masters from the Dr. Cossack levels. Well, technically there's only 2 levels based off from the Dr. Cossack levels, so yes, this game is strange. This game is the strangest thing I've ever saw. Although, mind you, because it's like a mini portable version of, like an additional of, Mega Man 4 and 5 all in one, so I'm just speechless right now. Mind you, because also this is my first time experiencing the game, so but at least I'm familiar with the levels like this, except the fact that I have to deal with screen crunch, so this makes things a lot harder, so... Alright, time for Wave Man, and obviously we need to still utilize these bubbles as platforms, so that way we can able to hop onto one bubble to the other, so just like in the original version of the stage, except the fact that what makes things a bit tougher is the fact that we now need to do a screen crunch, because you can't really see what's below you or what's far from the left, and it's impossible to see what's ahead of you, so although I don't know if they were actually managed to port the game onto the Sega Master System or something like that. I know for the fact that a lot of hackers out there already managed to done that, but I have no idea if they managed to able to got the Master System version of this, but I honestly have no words. But anyway, let's just catch a ride on that familiar vehicle ever since in Mega Man 5 for the NES, so that way we can able to take a ride and hopefully destroy some more enemies there. So yeah, as far as I'm aware, today's day is of course the 23rd of August today, in this case in 2022 today. Not much else to talk about at the moment right now, if only because about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, that we've almost nearly at the end for the likes of the forms of Mega Man for the Game Gear. So because of that though, I think I'll let Jewel will mention more details about the forms of some more things here and there, until when she goes on to the final game of the entire marathon, which is of course Mega Man the Wily Wars. So at least even then, when she gets into that game, thankfully she doesn't need to worry about the forms of those very stingy, you know, screen crunch and stuff like that. But regardless of such though, that's as far as I can usually, as far as I can predict that, so... Oh god, we have the octopus mini-fight going on around here before we progress, before we, oh Jesus Louise! Oh Jesus Louise, this is scary! Darn it all! Screw this fight. But, at the very least we got the checkpoint just before that particular water ride thingy again, so... yeah... Jeez. There's gonna be a lot of depths in this playthrough, especially noticeable because, you know what I mean, because we're on hard difficulty, so I can't really tell what's the difference between the forms of in normal or hard mode, although I'm guessing like the hard mode is likely for the ultimate challenge, I'm guessing, even though I haven't exactly looked upon this Let's Play as that much either, unlike the console versions, because obviously the console version is more popular, at least in my experience anyway, but regardless of such though, that's as far as I can honestly try to say about the forms of Mega Man for the Game Gear. It's just that this game is quite bizarre. It's quite literally the most bizarre thing I've ever saw. Mind you, it's still playable, don't get me wrong, but it's just so weird able to actually include the, you know, everything like I said from earlier ago. Alright, so let's just hopefully we can able to actually pass this particular mini fight this time. So without any like too much mistakes or you know, timing issues. Oh jeez, now it's gonna get faster again because I can definitely tell that he's almost dead. And sure enough, there he goes. Alright, so now let's go ahead and move on. So, oh jeez, some more fishies! Fishies! As well as the forms of that Sniper Joe's. Yeah, I'm gonna say that those sound effects in this game do look a bit weird in this game, because for some reason, because I keep on getting accustomed to the forms of the NES counterparts, because relatively speaking, that's the only way I've pretty much used this at this point in time, so... Because obviously, on the NES games, it was like super iconic when it comes to likely destroying certain things with a satisfying sound effect, but I digress. So, I just realized that this game also has a mystery tank here now as well, but unfortunately though, I don't think I can probably able to go back to the previous stage because, well, I just could never find it because, well, then again, I haven't exactly looked upon that Let's Play that much though, but from what I've noticed, then I'm pretty sure it was actually on Snowman stage, which I somehow accidentally skipped because, well, I just can't really tell because of the forms of that screen crunch and everything. So, yeah, I somehow messed that part up. But, oh well, we'll just have to do it without it anyway because, well, we're pretty much almost at the end, like I said. So, anyways, let's go ahead and take down Wave Man. So, because normally we were supposed to be able to actually decide to use the charge kick from the likes of the forms of how it does it on Mega Man 5, but now we don't have that anymore, so we have to do it the hard way by dealing with the forms of using the Mega Buster, or should I say a charged up Mega Buster, and also on top of all that stuff though, Screen Crunch. So, oh geez, it's actually a little bit more difficult than ever before, so yeah, best of luck for my dodging efforts, I suppose. And there goes Wave Man. So hopefully we should be able to actually get ourselves the, you know, the Wave Man's weapon. So that should be entirely evitable, I guess. In this case, it still says you get Wave Weapon, which I'm not exactly sure what that weapon's name was though. So no, I just realized I don't have a password with me. So, oh well. Really? Toadman? As in the last stages on that particular Dr. Cossack castle? Wow. Okay, so we'll just deal with Toadman, I suppose. So I think this is our, I would classify for saying the second time, or technically the third time we're going to be fighting against with Toadman after the events of Mega Man 4 for the NES, and same applies to Mega Man 4 on the Game Boy. So, yeah, this is kind of strange. They're able to add in the most pathetic Robot Master at the very end of the game. So, yeah, I have no idea why they managed to come up with this. So, and obviously, that will actually be the last Robot Master that's actually based off of Mega Man 4. So, yeah, that's kind of strange still. But relatively speaking, it's just the fact of the matter is, though, is that, you know, like I said, this game is too strange for me. But that's only mainly because I'm accustomed to NES games, so, but I digress. And also the PlayStation title, you know, Mega Man 8 and all that stuff, so. And I can guarantee about the fact that this stage is going to be quite hellish for me, especially noticeable after dealing with the forms of, you know, death situations, or keep on getting hit by certain obstacles or enemies most of the time, and also Screen Crunch, like I said. And also, not to mention though, sometimes, in this particular game itself, sometimes, for me though, it's the fact that the depth perception is like, kind of feels a bit off to me, but that's only mainly because about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, I just couldn't seem to able to pay attention to the actual depth perception or something like that when it comes to like, you know, going through those series of platforms and all that stuff, but I think relatively speaking, that's just far from the case, I guess, but anyway, so we'll just keep on moving, so hopefully we won't be having that too much trouble, I guess. Although, what I've noticed is the fact that one thing I should probably mention, but for some reason, Mega Man Sprite feels a bit shinier than the forms of how it does it on the NES counterpart, which I honestly have no idea why. They managed to bring in some of these shiny effects onto its body parts for its sprite, but I'm guessing it's mainly because it almost kind of feels a bit slightly similar to the likes of how it does in Mega Man the Wily Wars sprite, except with the forms of the Mega Man's eyes or his face feels a lot like, well, a lot similar like. But again, I honestly have no words to say because that's as far as I can say in terms of well, Mega Man on the Game Gear is just, well, quite literally the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, like I said so many times. But I'm sure we'll get the gist of it though, but unfortunately though, my computer's somewhat lagging again, which isn't good, especially noticeable because, well, after I was trying to concentrate on something, then you probably already know why. And also, another thing that's kind of annoying on this stage though is the fact that, well, oh jeez, that was close. Because, relatively speaking, because that's the bad example with Screen Crunch sometimes. Because, if I was trying to deal with the forms of that snail mini-boss, then obviously I can't really tell what he was about to toss on something, likely due to the fact that of trying to send the bombs right in front of me. So, but at the very least we did manage to survive that, at the very least, so. Alright, so let's go ahead and take on Toad Man now. So, although we're gonna have to able to commit suicide yet again, because obviously I cannot deal with him with a little tiny bit of health. So, yeah, that might be something worth noting for it, but anyway. Alright, so I think we should probably bring out the... Actually, kind of think about it. Let's bring the wave weapon for a second, just so I can able to demonstrate this before we, deal with him with a Mega Buster. So, in this case, though, let's see how he plays out in this particular variation. So, although it deals a bit of damage, I mean, surely that's, it was supposed to be able to be, like, Bright Man is the only, thing it's worth noting for, but, regardless of such, though, he just does this most of his time. Although he occasionally, this time around, though, he now decides to attack, which I'm guessing that's the only improvement for the difficulty with him. But still, it can be inconsistent sometimes. But I digress. Come on, he should be down in any moment now. There he goes. So that pretty much concludes Toad Man. I'm going to say, that is by far the hardest version of Toad Man after all, after the events of the pathetic joke of the boss, from the likes of the forms of how it does it on, you know, regular Mega Man 4, and Mega Man 4 on the Game Boy. So, and after that though, we immediately onto the Dr. Wily's castle. So, let's see what levels that brings us to this time. Wait a second. Does that level seem familiar to you? Wait a second. This is... Oh shoot. It's actually Quickman stage, apparently. So yes, that's what I mean when it comes to the forms of one of those levels. They did, for some reason, brought back. That's what appears to be Quickman stage from Mega Man 2. So, except now, we now have a sliding maneuver, so this makes things a bit easier for our side of things. And also, on top of all that stuff, though, with those particular lasers, that, apparently, though, it was supposed to be able to allow me to get instant death by those little quick lasers. But apparently, though, in this particular version, if I somehow get hit once, that it doesn't kill me instantly. So, yeah, it seems kind of strange, doesn't it? Although, you will get killed instant death until you get hit by the lasers twice, so... That is something worth noting for the sake of the forms of that particular existence of ours, so... But I digress. So, anyways, let's go ahead and continue things on here. For some reason, this room is actually pure red as opposed to its normal blue color for some strange reason. But anyways, let's keep on going down and slide there. Yeah, as you can see, that I can take the invincibility frames any moment's notice and use my energy tank, so just in case I don't die. So, because otherwise, if I die, then otherwise I'm gonna have to start over for these sections again, so... Thank God with the slide exists, I should be able to deal with these sections no problem, apart from a few situations like, you know, getting hit by the one... Oh jeez, I forgot about this guy! But thankfully we somehow made it through. Oh jeez Louise, and after that though, the end of the level's right there. So, no need to fight against with Quickman, I guess. And that will pretty much leads us to possibly the final stage of the game. So, yeah, I'm not joking when I'm saying this. This is the last stage of the game. And we only have one boss left. And that will have to be by the forms of Dr. Wily himself. He looks very odd on this game for some reason. Because I was expecting there might be a, you know, the Robot Masters rematch, you know, rooms like this. But apparently we're going to be fighting against with Dr. Wily himself. And his weakness is obviously the Mega Buster. So, and that's pretty much about it. Although the entire fight kind of plays out exactly like the forms of how it does it on Mega Man 5. That, sometimes he likes to go and teleport all over the place and all that stuff though. And also with these little projectiles likes to able to not only just go onto the ground, but also just likes to able to circle and roam around. And then, honestly, this boss is a total joke. It's literally such a joke. Especially noticeable how easy is this particular final boss it looks like. Even though it doesn't matter if you have energy tanks with you, so it's just the fact the matter is though. The only time it's a bit tricky though, is the fact that where he teleports though. I mean, usually, relatively speaking, that will be the only hardest aspect about this boss, but apart from that, though, it's just all about waiting, and then as a result, she's just hoping the best, to able to actually just try to, you know, get the most accurate shot by able to deal the damage on you know, Wily Capsule and stuff like that. And aside from that, that's pretty much about it for the sake of defaults to the final stage. No platforming segment or anything, it's just you simply fight against with Dr. Wily, and that's pretty much about it. So, how anticlimactic that is. Well, at least specifically for the sake of this particular installment, as far as I can notice. But anyway, let's just go ahead and, oh, I just realized it's the fact that the actual boss theme is actually playing on. It was actually almost inspired by Mega Man 4 boss theme, specifically the NES game. So that's something worth classifying for noticing there. So, and there he goes, Dr. Wily with the Wily machine. Although, strangely enough, I still get hit if the boss has been dead. So that would be kind of unfair at times. And that's literally it. That's literally how this game ends. Like, basically, the Dr. Cossack castle has been exploded for some reason, and it says, mission perfect. Okay. Bit odd right there. And then basically after this, though, we'll end up in, as in, the fireworks display? And we get the credits. How weird as that is. Oh my god, I've seen strange things than this. But anyways, let's get my final thoughts of Mega Man for the Game Gear. Kind of a strange game to play through. Because that's the thing, because I'm still used to with the NES games for sure. But let's get the positives out of the way. I feel like the visuals do look pretty damn good, especially on the Game Gear side of things, because it feels kind of similar to the NES installments, except the fact that it's all on a small screen and stuff like that. And also, I feel like the music, well, it's a bit weird for able to have like the Game Gear version of certain music like this. I will say, it does sound pretty dang good. I will say for this point right now. And the gameplay itself feels remarkably similar to Mega Man 5, so nothing substantial about it. It's just fine, I guess. And I guess there was no story to this. And yeah, there's thank you for playing screen that shows not only Mega Man, but Dr. Wily with only 2 sprites of animation. So yeah, I think, suffice to say, this game is okay. Like, literally the most okay-ish game I've ever played. I mean, surely it's, again, so bizarre. But yeah, that was it for Mega Man for the Sega Game Gear. So yes, pretty short. So this is me, ready to fly and squirrel from the likes of the Maxi Toys. And until then, up next here will be the last game of this entire marathon for Mega Man Marathon 2. And that will have to be Mega Man The Wily Wars. So that will be gem-packed with that particular title alone. So, I'll see you guys next time. See ya, folks.